Anna, you're still alive! You want to go on a date? Welcome, friends, Last Scarf here, and it's time for a very special voice practice. It's going to be one voice. Reinhardt. I almost said Torbjorn. Reinhardt. I wish I could get Torbjorn good. Like, Torbjorn is like, puh, puh. What's Torbjorn's again? What was it? Hard fuck pays off. That's more Reinhardt than Torbjorn. It's like, dumb machine. No, that's Reinhardt again. All I can do with Torbjorn is puh. That's it. His puh. That's it. That is it. Alright, so we are doing a very special practice. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. If you read the Reflections comic, Reinhardt reads a book of something probably Christmassy to 8 children. All 8 children are Torbjorn's kids, and they're pretty young, so Torbjorn started late. Very late. So that's the idea. That's the premise of this. It's just going to be a lot of voice practice for Reinhardt, because I really like that voice. I like his voice actor a lot. He's a really nice-seeming guy. I just really want to get that voice down. And it's going to take some practice, and it's just doing the voice and then going back and seeing how I could do it better. And the only way to do it better is to just do it and do it and do it and do it and then see what I can do better. So we're going to read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but a condensed, abridged version. We found quite a few. There's like a 30-pager. There's another one. There's a 90-pager. I'm like, the way this reads, I don't really like. This one reads pretty well. So I like this one. So we're going to do this version of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It has 5 staves. I don't know what a stave is. I guess chapters? And it seems right, so we're going to do it like this. And so it's going to be Reinhardt voice, and I got water ready. I'm going to do this in multiple... this is not going to be in one take, because it's a lot of voice in one go. But this should be fun. So I'm going to do each stave, take a break, and then do the next stave, or... Yeah, I want to get all these done, but I got to take a break. So... let's get going here. And if my face just don't want to look at my face the whole damn time, we could always put up the picture of Reinhardt. That could always be a thing too. We can just read to the kids, looking way too serious. I like to think he wishes he had Anna. I like the thought of Nana Anna and Reinhardt being a thing. They just aren't together. Although Anna's probably also thinking of her daughter. So here we go. Reinhardt. Now the keyword I use for it is Erwin, because Ninjax is right and Erwin really links it up. Erwin, Reinhardt, catchphrase. I know I'm not doing as well as I could. Catchphrase. No, that's really bad. Reinhardt, precision German engineering. Now let's start this. Gather round, children. Gather round. All 8 of you. Torbjorn, you put in too much work. Oh dear. Okay. I will tell you a Christmas carol. Stave 1, Marley's ghost. Marley was dead. To begin with, old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Sorry kids, it's funny. This must be understood, or nothing wonderful can come from the story I am going to relate. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, though his old partner was definitely dead. The company was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people called Scrooge Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, Scrooge was a selfish old sinner. And he didn't thaw 1 degree at Christmas, which makes no sense considering it is winter. Unless he's in Australia. Oh. One dark Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was biting fog weather. Merry Christmas, Uncle! Scrooge's nephew came into the room. Bah, said Scrooge. Humbug. Christmas a humbug, Uncle, he said. You don't mean that. If I could work my will, said Scrooge indignantly, every idiot who comes about with Merry Christmas on his lips, should be boiled with his own pudding, and buried with a stake of holy through his heart. That's a good one. The nephew answered, Don't be angry, Uncle. Come for Christmas tomorrow. Bah, humbug! Why cannot we be friends? Cried Scrooge's nephew. Merry Christmas, Uncle. Goodbye, said Scrooge. His nephew even stopped to wish Merry Christmas to the clerk. My clerk, muttered Scrooge. 15 shillings a week, and a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. Humbug. Scrooge's nephew had let 2 other people in. They bowed to him. Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley, said one of the gentlemen. Mr. Marley, Scrooge replied, died 7 years ago this very night. Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, a few of us are going to buy the poor some meat and drink, and means of warmth. What would you like to give? Nothing, said Scrooge. He was not a nice guy. They can go to debtor's prison. Many would rather die. They would rather die? Said Scrooge. They had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Not a good guy, kids. Not a good guy at all. Scrooge went back to work. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness and biting cold thickened. One cold young boy stooped down to Scrooge's keyhole to sing a Christmas carol, but heard the first sound of God bless you, merry gentlemen. May nothing you dismay. Scrooge jumped up so that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog. At the length of the hour shutting up arrived, Scrooge nodded to the clerk, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose, said Scrooge. The clerk observed that it was only once a year. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket. Every 25th of December, said Scrooge, but be here all the earlier next morning. Scrooge went home to his gloomy house. The yard was dark and the fog and frost hung around the house. Now, the knocker on his door was very large and ordinary, but tonight it looked like Marley's face. Marley's face. The eyes were wide open, and its greyish colour made it horrible. As Scrooge looked, it became a knocker again. He did look carefully, but there was nothing behind the door. So he said, "Pooh, pooh," and closed it with a bang. He closed his door and double-locked himself in. He walked through his room to see that all was right, and sat by the fire. Humbug, he said, and then he heard it, a clanking noise from a cellar, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise coming up the stairs, then straight towards his door. Humbug, said Scrooge. It came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Marley! The chain Marley pulled was long, and made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, and purses. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. What do you want with me? Said Scrooge. Who are you? In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Humbug, I tell you, humbug! At the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain. Scrooge fell upon his knees. Asked the ghost, do you believe in me or not? I do, said Scrooge. I must, but why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me? It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and if that spirit does not go forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. You are chained, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link and yard by yard, and of my own free will I wore it. Scrooge trembled more and more. Do you know, pursued the ghost, your chain was as heavy as this 7 Christmas Eves ago? You have made it longer since. But you are always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge. Business, cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. Mankind was my business. Kindness was my business. I am here tonight to warn you, pursued the ghost. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. I think I'd rather not, said Scrooge. The spectre floated up upon the bleak dark night. Expect the first tomorrow, said the ghost, when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, and the third upon the next night at the last stroke of 12. When it had said these words, the spectre floated out upon the bleak, dark night. The air was filled with moaning phantoms, and every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. They faded away. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was still as he had double-locked with his own hands. He tried to say humbug, but stopped. He went straight to bed and fell asleep upon the instant. That is chapter 1, little ones. And bigger ones. Come now, children, stave 2, the first of the 3 spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was dark. The chimes of a neighboring church struck the hour, with a deep, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside. I tell you by hand. And Scrooge found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close as I am now to you, children. It was a strange figure, like a child or an old man. I don't know how it's both of them. Its white hair hung around its neck and down its back, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it. Its legs and feet were bare. It wore a white tunic with a shining belt. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. No clue what I just described, kids. Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me? Asked Scrooge. Scrooge? The voice was soft and gentle. I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? Inquired Scrooge. No, your past. It put out its strong hand and clasped him gently by the arm. Rise and walk with me. They passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road. Now it was a clear, cold winter day, with snow upon the ground. Good heaven, said Scrooge. I was a boy in this place. He wiped away a tear and begged the ghost to lead him. You recollect the way? Inquired the spirit. Remember it, cried Scrooge. I could walk it blindfolded. I do that sometimes too, kids. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and tree, until a little town appeared in the distance. Some shaggy ponies trotted towards them with boys on their backs. All these boys shouted to each other merrily. Scrooge knew and named them every one. These are but shadows of things that have been, said the ghost. They do not see us. But why was he filled with gladness when he heard them tell each other Merry Christmas as they parted? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? What good had it ever done to him? The school is not quite deserted, said the ghost. A lonely child neglected by his friends is still there. Scrooge said he knew it, and he cried. They soon approached a large house, its windows broken and the many rooms cold and bare of food. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, to the back of the house, their room with desks. At one of these lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down beside his poor forgotten self, as he used to be. He said, Poor boy, and cried again. I wish, Scrooge muttered, after drying his eyes with his cuff. But it is too late now. But it's too late now. What is the matter? Asked the spirit. Nothing, said Scrooge. Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have given him something. That is all. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, Let us see another Christmas. And there he was, alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the holidays. The door opened, and a little girl came darting in and put her arms around his neck. I have come to bring you home, dear brother, said the child. We are to be together all the Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world. Your sister, said the ghost, always a delicate creature, but she had a large heart. So she had, said Scrooge. You're right, spirit. She died a woman, said the ghost, and had, I think, one child, your nephew. Scrooge answered sadly, yes. All at once they were in a busy city. Here too it was Christmas time again, but it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. The ghost stopped at a warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. I know it, said Scrooge. I was apprenticed here. At sight of an old gentleman behind a high desk, Scrooge cried in great excitement. Why, bless his heart, it's Fezziwig, alive again. Scrooge's former self, now a young man, came in beside his fellow apprentice. Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock. He rubbed his hands and called out in a rich voice, No more work tonight, my boys, said Fezziwig. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Clear away, lads. It was done in a minute. The floor was swept, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse became a snug, warm, bright ballroom. In came a fiddler with a music book. In came Miss Fezziwig and 3 Miss Fezziwigs. In came all the young men and women employed in the business, the housemaid, the baker, the cook, the milkmaid. Away they all went, 20 couples at once. There were dances and games, there was cake and roast beef, and mince pies and plenty of ale. Didn't have that yet, kids. During all this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. He enjoyed everything now that he remembered the ghost. He became conscious that it was looking full upon him. A small matter, said the ghost, to make these silly folk so full of gratitude. Small, echoed Scrooge. It wasn't that spirit. He has the power to make our work a pleasure or a toil. The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. He stopped. What is the matter? Asked the ghost. Nothing particular, said Scrooge. Something, I think? The ghost insisted. No, said Scrooge. No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all. Scrooge and the ghost again stood in the open air. My time grew short, observed the spirit. Quick. Again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now. He was not alone, but sat by a pretty young girl. In his eyes there were tears. It matters little to you, she said softly. Another idol has taken my place. It is the love of money. Goodbye. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. Spirit, cried Scrooge, show me no more. I cannot bear it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer. He was conscious of being exhausted, and of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. That's it for chapter 2, young ones. I lost the voice. And that is it for And that is it for chapter 2, young ones. Up next is stave 3, the second of the 3 spirits. Come now, children, chapter 3. Chapter 3. Stave 3, the second of the 3 spirits. Scrooge waited again. Now when the bell struck 1, he saw a ghostly light coming from the next room. He shuffled to the door. I thought it was at strike 2. A strange voice called him by his name, and bade him enter. The room was hung with holly and mistletoe, and a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped up like a throne were geese, pies, plum puddings, chestnuts, oranges, pears, cakes, and punch. It's me on a Tuesday, kids. Upon this food couch there sat a jolly giant who had held a glowing torch high up to shed its light on Scrooge. Come in, exclaimed the ghost, and know me better, man. Scrooge entered timidly and hung his head. I am the ghost of Christmas present, said the spirit. Look upon me. Scrooge reverently did so. It was clothed in a green robe, bordering with white fur. Its feet were bare, and on its head it wore a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles. You have never seen the like of me before, exclaimed the spirit. Spirit, said Scrooge, conduct me where you will. I went forth last night, and I learnt a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have anything to teach me, let me profit by it. Touch my robe. That's a weird one, kids. Feast, fire, room, all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets on a snowy Christmas morning. The sky was gloomy, and yet was there an air of cheerfulness, abroad like a summer day. Soon the steeples called the people to church, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes, and with their happiest faces. The good spirit led him straight to Scrooge's clerks, holding to his robe, and at the door the spirit smiled, and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling. Think of that! Bob had but 15 shillings a week himself, and yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his little house. Then uprose Mrs. Cratchit, dressed poorly in a worn dress. "What has ever got your precious father, then?" said Mrs. Cratchit to the little Cratchits. "And your brother, Tiny Tim?" In came Bob, the father, in his threadbare clothes, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Sadly, Tiny Tim held a little crutch. "And how did little Tim behave?" asked Miss Cratchit. "As good as gold," said Bob. "He told me that he had hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple. And it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see." I don't even know what that means, kids. At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cook. Mrs. Cratchit brought in the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, blazing with brandy, and with Christmas holly stuck into the top. A wonderful pudding. Bob proposed a toast. "A Merry Christmas to all us. A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us. God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hand in his, as if he loved the child, and wished to keep him by his side, and dreaded that he might be taken from him. "That is a little dark, kids. That's a little dark." "Spirit," said Scrooge, with an interest he had never felt before, "tell me if Tiny Tim will live." "I see a vacant seat," replied the ghost, "in the corner, and a crutch, without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." Really dark to tell you kids that one, I know. Maybe should have gotten a different book. No, said Scrooge. "Oh, no, kind spirit, say he will be spared. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, he will die this year," repeated the ghost. "What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population." Holy crap! Scrooge hung his head, ashamed to hear his own words. "Man," said the ghost, "will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child." But now Scrooge heard his own name. "Mr. Scrooge," toasted Bob. "I'll give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast." "The founder of the feast, indeed," cried Mrs. Cratchit, reddening. "She must be drinking." "My dear," was Bob's mild answer, "Christmas Day." "I'll drink his health for your sake, and the day's," said Miss Cratchit. "Not for his. Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." The children drank the toast after her, but they didn't care for it. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party. By the by, they had a song from Tiny Tim, who had a sweet little voice, and sang it very well indeed. They were not a handsome family, they were not well dressed, but they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and content with the time. Scrooge watched them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last. And now they travel through coal miners' homes, past ships on the dark sea, and everywhere they went, no matter how poor, every person hummed a Christmas tune, or had a Christmas thought, and every person, good or bad, had a kind word for another on that day. Scrooge heard a hearty laugh and recognized it as his own nephew's. He found himself in a bright, gleaming room, with a spirit standing smiling by his side. "Ha ha!" laughed Scrooge's nephew. "He said that Christmas was a humbug. As I live, he believed it too." "More shame for him, Fred," said Scrooge's niece indignantly. He's a comical old fellow, said Scrooge's nephew, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offences carry their own punishment, and I am sorry for him, who suffers by his ill whims himself always. They had some music and played at games, for it is good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas. They all played and sang, and so did Scrooge, singing quite loud. He begged like a boy to be allowed to stay until the guests departed. But this, the spirit said, could not be done. Much they saw, and far they went, and everywhere the spirit he left his blessing. It was a long night, and Scrooge noticed that the ghost grew older, and he noticed that his hair was grey. "A spirit's life so short?" asked Scrooge. "My life upon this globe is very brief," replied the ghost. "It ends tonight at midnight. Hark, the time of drawing is drawing near." The bell struck 12, and the spirit disappeared. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming, like a mist along the ground, towards him. I know a guy like that, kids. He's a jerk. All right, that is it for stave 3. Next there will be stave 4, children. Friends, what are you doing standing around? There's glory to be won. That's close. All right. Come now, children, it's time for chapter 4. Stave 4. I don't know what it means. Stave 4. The last of the spirits. The phantom approached in a deep black garment, which left nothing of it visible save one bony hand. I know a guy like that. I've said that before. I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, said Scrooge. You are about to show me shadows of the things that will happen. Is that so, spirit? Scrooge's legs trembled beneath him. Ghost of the future, he exclaimed, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But I know your purpose is to do me good, and I am prepared to bear you company. And do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me? It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight ahead. Lead on, said Scrooge. Lead on. The night is precious time to me. I know. Lead on, spirit. The phantom moved away. They were in the heart of the city, among the merchants who hurried up and down, and chinked the money in their pockets, as Scrooge had seen them be often. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Pointing to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk. No, said a great fat man with a monstrous chin. I don't know much about it. I only know he's dead. When did he die? Inquired another. Last night, I believe. What has he done with his money? I haven't heard, said the man with the large chin, yawning. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for I don't know of anybody to go to it. I don't mind going if a lunch is provided, laughed one gentleman. Not the nicest gentleman there, kids. You shouldn't do that. Scrooge knew the men, and looked towards the spirit for an explanation. Scrooge fancied that the unseen eyes were looking at him closely. It made him shudder and feel very cold. They went into a dark part of town, where the shops and houses reeked with filth and misery. There was a shop where greasy junk was bought. Scrooge and the phantom came into the shop of old Joe's, just as 2 women and a man carried in bundles laughing. The man produced his plunder first. A pencil case and a brooch were all. Old Joe added up his prices upon the wall. I know these things, Scrooge said. They are just like mine, and they are worth much more than this man is paying. Who's next? Said Joe. Miss Dilber was next. Sheets and towels, 2 old-fashioned silver spoons, and a pair of sugar tongs, and a few boots. Her account was stated on the wall in the same manner. I paid 2 shillings 10 for teaspoons just like those. Scrooge objected. And now undo my bundle, Joe, said the next woman. Joe dragged out a large and heavy roll of dark stuff, the same fabric and color as Scrooge's bed curtains. Bed curtains, said Joe. You don't mean to say you took 'em down, rings and all, with them lying there dead? Yes, I do, replied the woman. Why not? Kids, these guys are effed up. Do not be like this. This is terrible. His blankets too? Asked Joe. Whose else do you think? Replied the woman. And that's the best shirt he had, and a fine one too. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me, putting it on him to be buried," and she laughed. But I took it off again. Scrooge looked at the shirt, just like his own shirt, and listened in horror. "Ha ha," laughed the same woman. "When old Joe paid 3 out, this is the end of it. You see, he frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead." "Spirit," said Scrooge, shuddering from head to foot. I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. Merciful heaven, what is this?" He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncurtained bed, on which beneath a ragged sheet there lay the body of this man. He lay in the dark, empty house, with no one to say that he was kind to me in this or that. "Spirit," he said, "this is a fearful place. Let us go." The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, and found the mother and the children seated around the fire. Very quiet the little Cratchits were, as still as statues in one corner. With Peter, who had a book before him, the mother and her daughters were sewing, but surely they were very quiet. The mother had laid her work upon the table, and put her hand up to her face. "It must be past your father's time," she said. Peter said, shutting up his book, "But I think he was walked a little slower than he used these few last evenings, mother." "Alas," she said, "he used to walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed, but he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so. Ah, there is your father at the door." She hurried out to him. Bob broke down all at once and cried. He couldn't help it. They drew about the fire and talked. Bob told them the extraordinary kindness of Mr. Scrooge's nephew, whom he had scarcely seen but once. "I am heartily sorry for it, Mr. Cratchit," he said, "and sorry for your good wife. I am sure we shall none of us forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we?" "Never, father," cried they all. "Spectre," said Scrooge, "tell me what man that has whom we saw laying dead?" The ghost of Christmas yet to come did not answer, but led him straight on until they reached an iron gate. A churchyard, here, then, the wretched man, whose name he had now to learn, lay underneath the ground. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. "Answer me one question," said Scrooge. "Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only?" He followed the finger and read upon the stone of the grave his own name. "Ebenezer Scrooge." The finger pointed from the grave to him, and back again. "No, spirit, oh no, no!" The finger still was there. "Spirit," he cried, tightly clutching at his robe, "hear me, I am not the man I was. Why show me this, if I am past all hope?" For the first time the hand appeared to shake. "Good spirit," he pursued, "I will honor Christmas in my heart, and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone." In his agony he caught the spectral hand, the phantom's hood and dress shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Riveting story, right, kids? Riveting. That is the end of chapter 4. There's one more chapter. And that'll be a good one, I hope. For those wondering, this took the span of, a day and a half, pretty much, to do. My friends, what is all this standing around, when there is glory to be won? Almost there. Let's do this. Come now, kids. Chapter 5, Stay 5. The end of it. Best title for a chapter. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated, as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven in the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, oh, Jacob, on my knees. I shouldn't laugh so much at that. His face was wet with tears. "They are not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will." "I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and cutting in the same breath. I am as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Uncle Reinhardt has been like that many times, boys and girls. He had frisked into the... Frisked? He had frisked into the sitting room, and was now standing there, perfectly winded. There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered, cried Scrooge, starting off again and going around the fireplace. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas Present sat. There's the window where I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right. It's all true. It all happened. Ha ha ha. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh. I don't know what day of the month it is, said Scrooge. I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. This is weird. Never mind, I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Now it really is weird, kids. The churches began ringing out the lustiest peals? Lustiest peals? Lexicon. The churches began ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Clash, clang, hammer, ding, dong, bell, oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his hand. No fog, no mist, clear, bright, cold. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells, oh, glorious, glorious. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes. Eh? Returned the boy. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. Today? Replied the boy. Why, Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know the poultry shop in the next street at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, replied the lad. Ah, intelligent boy, said Scrooge. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the big one? As big as me? Returned the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. Yes. Kinda creepy. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. Is it? Said Scrooge. Go and buy it. What? Exclaimed the boy. I am in earnest, said Scrooge. Go and tell them to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you a half a crown. What is a half a crown? I don't even know what a shilling is. The boy was off with a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered the Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. He wrote the address somehow and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterers? I'm learning new words today. Ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. As he stood there waiting his arrival, the knocker caught his eye. I shall love it as long as I live, cried Scrooge, patting it with his hand. It's a wonderful knocker. Here's the turkey. How are you? Merry Christmas. He's lost his mind, kids. Just keep that in mind. It was a turkey. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. I think he became the Joker, lads. Oh, dear. Oh, man. Oh, my God. Okay. He dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas Present, and Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you. And Scrooge said often afterwards that of all the happy sounds he had ever heard, those were the happiest in his ears. He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld the gentleman who had walked into his counting-house the day before. It sent a pang across his heart to think how this old gentleman would look upon him when they met, but he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. My dear sir, said Scrooge, quickening his pace, and taking the old gentleman by both his hands, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness to allow me to give you?" Here Scrooge whispered in his ear. "Lord bless me," cried the gentleman, as if his breath were taken away. "My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please," said Scrooge, "not a farthing less. A great many If you please," said Scrooge, "not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour?" "My dear sir," said the other, shaking hands with him, "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything, please," retorted Scrooge. "Will you come and see me?" "I will," cried the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. "Thank ye," said Scrooge. "I am much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you." He went to church and walked about the streets, and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that anything could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the girl. "Yes, sir." "Where is he, my love?" said Scrooge. "He's a little creepy. He's a little creepy, kids." "He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs if you please." I'm losing this one. Why am I losing this one? "He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs if you please." "He knows me," said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room lock. "I'll go in here, my dear." "Fred," said Scrooge. "Why, bless my soul," cried Fred. "Who is that?" "It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?" "Let me in. It is a mercy." He didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. Nothing could be heartier. Wonderful party, wonderful games, and wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first, and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it, yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob, 1/4 past, no Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open, that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was they have a tank? His hat was off before he opened the door. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello! Hello!" How do you do Reinhardt hello? He's just, "Hello! I know, yes." "Hello!" growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I am very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob, peering from the tank. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." That's what they call it sometimes, kids. Don't ask me what that means, actually. "Now I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, I am about to raise your salary." Bob trembled. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down, holding him and calling to the people in the court for help and a straight waistcoat. That is not a good way to treat your boss, by the way. A good lesson to know, kids. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another. That's an interesting string of words. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die. It's all capitalized, the not, kids. You can see it. Who did not die. He was the second father. To Tiny Tim, he was the second father. Like Batman. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town or borough, in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further meetings with spirits ever afterward, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possess the knowledge, may that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. That was an interesting story, kids. Now run along and learn how to make tanks or something, I don't know. Alright, there you go. Okay, so I definitely dropped off on that voice. Damn, well, I tried. I put in my effort. I gotta get better at it, though, that's for sure. You're not gonna get it great the first, while. You just gotta keep working at it and you'll eventually get it. The goal isn't necessarily to get perfectly a copy of Reinhardt, but to do a good Reinhardt that it's obvious that it's Reinhardt I'm trying to do. Or I can always just turn it into a voice, like how Ostowski guy's just a voice now. I don't know. Reinhardt voice is a fun voice, which I would love to be able to do well. So you just gotta practice at it. You gotta practice at everything. That's how it is. But there you go. That right there is A Christmas Carol as read by Reinhardt, as voiced by Lascarf, as well as he could do. So there you go. I had fun of it from watching and listening, and that's what's... Actually, I don't know how we're going to show this, but I had fun watching and listening, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.